Hello, and welcome to another episode of Trendy with Kim Allison, where I interview some of the most talented and inspiring beauty talents in our industry. And today, you guys, I am super excited, as I always am, to introduce to you not just one, but two incredible stylists, Lewis Miller and Bradley Moreland. These two hairstylists are not only making waves in New York City, doing high profile public figures, but they're also, you guys, they're married and they share an amazing dynamic both personally and professionally. We'll dive into their individual journeys, how they built their careers, and what it's like to work in such a competitive industry together. So let's get inspired, everybody. Lewis and Bradley, welcome to the show.
Hi, we're so happy to be here.
Thank you for having us.
I'm happy to have you. Should we tell them real quick how we met?
I think they have to know.
Of course, they've got to know. So we were in Maui. We happened to be vacationing at the same time. Me, my husband Mike, and Lewis and Bradley. We had no clue who each other were, obviously, until Lewis, he's sitting so angelic on the beach in all white, Indian style, if I can say that still, not to offend anyone in this woke culture, Indian style.
I was trying to meditate.
Yes, and he had his head pods in, and he's looking into the sky right in front of the ocean. And what does Kim Allison do? Hijack his space.
Yes.
Now, here's the fun part, though. As we started our chat, because I was just there to take video of Mike out kayaking, turns out we're hairdressers, and then the magic began after that. Yeah.
I think too, it was just like we instantly connected on a vibe. I feel like I remember you coming up to me and saying like, "I've seen your energy," and funny enough, like we saw both you and Mike at the pool, and we immediately was like, "Oh, look at this," and da 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 da. And so we got an energy from you guys without even being close with you. And then when you approached me, we were talking about it, and I was like, we don't really get this much time off because we had been there for over a week already, and then we were in Maui for another week. And I said, "Yeah." Because we're both hairstylists, and immediately you were just like, "Oh my God, me too." So
I know.
it was
so
really
fun.
cool to connect on more of like energy vibe level, and then figure out all of these things that followed that we actually, had in common.
Absolutely. And that is so, I have another story to share with you that I didn't say that day. Right now, I am in a season of just being intentional and practicing gratitude and just, grace. And anytime I start a new venture like this one, the show, I always ask God in my meditation, my journaling and prayers, point me in the right direction, please. If at any point you feel this is not the direction, turn my little body this way, wind me back up, and point me somewhere else, right? So I had that morning, a full-on prayer, meditation, conversation, and then I went to the beach from there. Lo and behold, the person I sit next to happens to be a hairstylist.
Yes.
And not only is he a hairstylist, his husband shows up, who's also a hairstylist. Not only are they both hairstylists, they do celebrities, and they do, just a multifaceted clientele. And so how cool is that for a sign that you're in the right direction?
It was definitely a little bit of fate playing the hand, I think, and everyone getting together. And as someone, the way that I kind of live my life, a lot of times when I'm on vacation, I usually go into this zone where I'm like, I don't need to speak to a human being. I spend my life talking about it, but not on vacation. And like, I automatically, right when I met you, I was like, oh, she's really cool. And like, I don't feel that energy a lot. And like I said, we had noticed you and Mike and made comments. like y'all's routine in the gym, and then his seating at the pool, and I was like, that man works really hard. He deserves two
that's where we
chairs.
first saw each other at the gym.
Yeah.
That's right. And we happen to be working out right next to each other.
Yes.
How just so, I mean, we were meant to know each other. You guys were meant to be here, and which makes it so much more, just enjoyable, so much more meaningful that I can share you now with my audience. So let's get into your individual hair journey. So Lewis, let's start with you. How did your journey into hairdressing begin? And what made you fall in love with it?
Well, I guess I was always super artistic when I was younger. So I used to draw a lot and definitely did not think I would be here today where I am. But I started my career as a receptionist at Vidal Sassoon in Chelsea. I did it as just like a part-time. I actually had two jobs. One was I was a pharmacy technician. That's how I transferred to New York City so that I still had a job. And then I had a part-time receptionist job, which I was constantly getting in trouble at because I was never actually behind the desk. I was always on the floor getting my hair done. And I don't know if you guys know, but in Sassoon, everything's super straight and like the colors are very vivid. So me having dark hair, they wanted me blue, shaved on the side and stuff. And I'm like, yes, let's do it. And then I would go to like my pharmacy job and it would just kind of be like, wait, what is going on here? Like, I'd be in the lab coat and things like that with blue hair. And it definitely was more inspiring to be in the salon rather than pharmacy. So I quit pharmacy and found a full-time job as a receptionist elsewhere, where I then I said, you know what? I don't need to be a receptionist. I can do this. I'm creative. And so I went to cosmetology school, night school. So I worked during the day and went to night school because I still had to pay my bills and rent in New York City. And God, I think I was like 22, maybe 21, 22. And then I left the salon after I graduated because I was promised kind of something bigger and better from another stylist. And turns out it was not that way. They were going to make me a stylist and on the floor at this space. And it was just ended up kind of backfiring. So I had to find another job as an assistant where I went to Gemini 14, which is now actually the salon I currently work in as creative director. It's called Vita West 14 now. And that's where I met Bradley and it kind of blossomed there. And that's where my true passion for hair started.
I find it interesting, Lewis, how much I feel like I want to take a poll on how many of us got our start just being in another job, knowing that we were something else. Because when I think of what you said, working at Walgreens or a pharmacy, excuse me, you didn't say Walgreens, maybe that stuck into my head, but I worked at ASU for 10 years before I became a hairdresser. And I would show up at our, events, after work hour events, and they wouldn't even recognize me. They're like, oh, wait, is that Kim? I'm like, yeah, because this girl that you work with all day, that's not me. This is me. I'm fashion forward. I do fun things with my hair. I do fun things with my makeup. You know what I mean? I'm not an academic. That's not me.
Corduroys and
and just all of that. And another thing, and then it's just you're like, oh my God, can I just put my real clothes on? Like this is a uniform, honestly. And then another thing I want to touch on, something you said about your first experience working under a seasoned stylist. And I think I do want to do like a little panel on that at some point, because I have talked to younger stylists, and I have my own story as the seasoned stylist that didn't deliver what I promised, you know? And I was telling the young stylist who had a horrible experience, I told her it took that assistant probably 5 later to tell me, Kim, you promised me XYZ. I am not with my kids to be here. I am not with my family to be here. And you haven't taught me shit. She literally told me that. She said, I've been here for 3 months and you haven't taught me shit. You said you were going to, and I think as seasoned hairdressers, we do forget, because all we want to do is stay on time, deliver good hair, right?
Yeah.
And get paid. That's it. And so you become that assistant. You become almost a prop. Just do the towel, sweep the floor, answer the phone. And we have to really have that conversation. You know what I mean? Because nobody should be offended in that.
Yeah.
In the end.
I think sometimes too, well, at least for me, like I felt like I was the shit, like as an assistant. And I was like, you know what, I can do this. And, you know, moving from that transition of thinking that I knew it all, of course. And then transitioning to being like a stylist on the floor with this person that owned the space. Like, you know, I think my britches were too big or something.
You were too big for your britches.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I was not prepared for this.
I mean, and we'll definitely jump into that later on in our conversation, because I do want to dig a little deeper into that. But let's get into Bradley and what inspired you to become a hairdresser, and how has your path evolved since?
So mine's been kind of a weird one if I really reflect on my career. You know, there's a little bit of an age gap between us, so we represent kind of two different generations. I'm 48, he's almost 35. You're almost 35. And so, you know, I used to spend the summers with my grandmother and her sister, my great aunt. She owned a salon. So during the summers, I would help her in her salon, literally doing perms and roller sets on little old ladies when I was 14 years old. And it was very intriguing. I loved the accuracy of it. I'm a little OCD, so there was a lot of precision in how you place. Is it over-directed? Is it undirected? Like, she went over all these different techniques on how to place to get a certain type of curl result from it. And just
Bradley, guys in beauty school, every guy that wrapped a perm, they would put their whole body into it. And we always thought that was so fun. Like, with the rolling like this, we're like, why are you moving?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you need a little gentle approach. Like, loosen up. You're not gripping for life. You're not going to, you're
death grip.
So, you know, that was like my really first introduction. And then, you know, my mother, you know, again, this is like the 80s when I'm like, you know, going through puberty. My mother was having me frost her hair, you know, where you take the needle and pull it through. My grandmother was having me apply single processes on her. I think just because she was on a budget, she didn't go to the salon. So I was helping her. And so, like, I had all this exposure to it. But on the flip side, I was going through like where I was growing up. I grew up in a town of like 10,000 people in Southeast Missouri near Arkansas. You know, I wasn't out about being gay. It was very Southern, conservative, Christian environment. So I was battling a lot of my own demons. So I never even put myself in this role of like, oh, I want to be a hairdresser one day. Because to me at that time, that basically was going to label me as a gay man. And I just wasn't there. And like society wasn't comfortable enough with me at that point, I felt. And so I went on to different things. When I left that town, I moved to St. Louis and actually went to St. Louis College of Pharmacy to work in pharmaceuticals. And so I wound up going into college. I always kind of worked on my friends on the side, playing with their hair. I was always really good with people always ask me, are you a hairdresser? Are you a hairdresser? I'm like, no, I just know how to style my hair.
Yes.
Apparently a lot of people didn't know how to style their hair. And then eventually just, I worked in pharmacy probably 7 years total. And just one day I was just didn't want to go to work. I was unhappy. And I was like, life is just too short to be miserable every day. We spend too much time at work. And I was like, I don't foresee myself being happy living this life anymore. So that's when I made the decision, much to like the chagrin of my family.
Yeah.
My parents being like, you're doing what? You just spent all this money on college? What? I decided I wanted to get into hairdressing, and I went through a year-long program full time to learn more up-to-date things. And then just kind of, from the start of it, I was just like, I just felt like I was in the right place. I just felt comfortable. I felt happy. I felt like I was at home. And then, right when I was finishing school, at the time I was dating someone in St. Louis who worked in musical theater, and he needed to move to New York City. So I was like, well, I've never even been to New York City. We did long distance for a year. I was going back and forth, and finally came here and had no job. I was just like, okay, where am I going to go? From a recommendation, there was like this salon in Chelsea that I went to, and they hired me on the spot. And they're like, okay, you start tomorrow. Meanwhile, I was still actually fresh out of beauty school, but I told them I had been like working as a hairstylist for like 5 years, blah, blah, blah. I've been on the floor. I kind of Meanwhile, I was like thrown into like behind the chair, and they're like booking me every 30 minutes. And I was just like, Bradley, you have to succeed here. This is your chance to make a career. You're just going to get behind the chair. Yeah, it was called Service Station Salon. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was like in the heart of Chelsea on 8th Avenue.
Talk about fake it until you make it.
I did. You know what?
You gotta have some balls to do that.
Touching onto like, how you learn from different stylists. Like, I've always known my learning style. I learn by watching. Some people have to actually physically do it. I can watch somebody do something and then I can do it. Meanwhile, I was working 7 days a week. I was working every single day because I just wanted to succeed. I was watching every single stylist around me quietly. I had a book in my hand waiting for clients to come up to be booked, but I was watching everyone in the mirror. I wasn't really reading because I was like, am I going to make them uncomfortable by watching them? Because I don't want people to know that I'm not really sure I know what I'm doing. So I pretended to be reading, and I'm watching them in the mirror, watching their hands, watching their movements, watching how they're talking with their clients. And eventually it just clicked. And within 6 months, I had a full book. Fresh out of beauty school, fresh to New York City. I told myself, you don't have a choice. You're going to do this. You have to prove to everyone that said, why are you giving up this career that you can make a lot of money at for something that you're unsure about? And I was like, you're going to prove them wrong. You're going to do it. And so that's it.
I am so proud of you. My gosh. And so tell me real quick what did your parents say once you reached that milestone?
My parents have always been very loving and very gracious, and like a big like stepping stone in my life of support. I think that it's never that they didn't support me, but they definitely were concerned for me that I was going to have a harder life and like, those types of things. That was more it was. They're not like, they would never say, no, you're making the wrong decision. They never said that.
No, totally. Yeah. But, yeah. I totally get that. I just meant like, you exceeded, I am sure you exceeded their expectation. So they must be very proud.
They're two of my biggest cheerleaders. I remember, again, over the years, you kind of get comfortable, you bring in clients, you develop a clientele that's loyal, you get, luckily, if you're lucky, some celebrities land in your chair. And if you're even luckier, they stay loyal to you, because that's the biggest thing with celebrity clienteles is treat them like you would anybody else and give them your trust and loyalty, because that's what they're lacking. So if you can offer that to them, they will stay with you. And
great advice.
And just as, the publications came out, I was in magazines, and, one of our clients now, Snooki, we've known for her, she had written a book, and I was like mentioned in the forefront of the book, and my grandfather took that book to church and be like, look at what my grandson has done. Took it to his Southern Baptist church, showing all these people that his grandson Bradley's in Snooki's book.
Oh my God. I love that story. That is super cute. That is super cute. So since you two, you know, gosh, you're kindred, you belong together. I mean, pharmacy. I mean, really? That's
it's
amazing.
a weird mirror imaging of two separate lives, but somehow interconnected in a lot of weird coincidental ways.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys, what do each of you feel sets your personal style techniques apart from each other? Because now that you're together, you work together, what separates? Well, let's real quick. We gotta touch base here. How did you meet? Like how did you come together?
You want to tell it, or you want me to tell it?
Yeah, I'll tell it. Basically, he interviewed me as an assistant, and I knew as soon as he texted me a winky emoji that it was game on.
Not the winky emoji. I love it.
Oh, he did the wink emoji, and I was like, oh, I've got this. And so I would show up to work, and I remember, like, obviously I saw him on the floor working, and he was always busy, and he looked great, and I was just like, well, okay. And then I remember it was like in the middle of summer, and like the AC had broke in the salon, and I was so hungover because I went out the night before.
The worst.
And so then we all got let go because it was so hot. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, now that we can leave early? And he's like, I'll probably grab a drink. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even think about drinking anymore. Like,
I know, you're like, barf.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I'll like grab a drink too. And I met him at his place. He, of course, in true, I don't even know what you would call that fashion, but he answered the door in his towel. He just got out of the shop.
My
I was like,
God.
okay. And he's like,
not a thirst trap.
The thirst trap, exactly. And I knew.
And you were parched. You're like, I'm here for it.
And yeah, it was funny because like so of course we went out and all that happened. And then
I said, then the magic begins.
Yeah. The magic
but wait,
happened.
Let's tell everyone, because that would have been August. Our first date anniversary.
God, that's right.
Tell the story.
When Mike and I met, our first date was August 4th.
Yep.
Yeah.
We all have the same first date anniversary.
See, I'm telling you, you guys, there is something about, just that. I don't know what what is it called?
Energy or
I don't
even. When you're just magnetic, like you're drawn to each other in some way. Yeah, you're supposed to meet, and somehow you will find a way to meet. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's a great story.
Our boss, our now boss, Vicky, she kind of like she got a group of stylists together to try to figure out like who can collect the most evidence that we were together without us knowing.
Because we weren't telling anybody.
Yeah, we'd have like...
And you thought they didn't know, Yeah.
We'd have like secret passes in the stairwell and give each other a kiss or something. I'd send some NFWs and like and get them really hyped during work. And then I remember one day I was invited to a party. This is how like our relationship became known. I got invited to a party. He didn't. And I was like, we should go. And he's like, no, they didn't invite me. I'm like, fine. So he's like, why don't we go for dinner and drinks? And I'm like, okay, fine. So we were having dinner in this little corner restaurant in the West Village.
And they placed us in the front window.
It was surrounded by windows. We were in the front window. We were just like that. Yeah. And all of a sudden I like look up and one of the stylists is like outside taking photos of us.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so were you guys like, damn, we've been
That's
made.
how we got busted.
But the other fun thing about that moment is when we got married officially, like 4 years later, that friend gave us a gift of that photo in a frame.
Yeah.
Of that first picture that he took of us. He's like, this is the moment I found out about you guys. So he framed that photo and gave it to us at our wedding.
Funny. And it was probably
Oh my gosh, that's just such a full circle
was definitely
moment.
not
I just love those kind of
No,
moments.
it was like super grainy. It was like, you know, this would have been
Whatever. You were there. So who cares if it's a good quality picture? You were there and it has the memory attached. So tell me, when you had that salon, when they had a contest going behind your backs, did he win the contest? And what were some of the other clues that were uncovered?
Starbucks cups with his name on both cups. You know, when like I'd walk in like 5 minutes after him, but we'd both walk in with Starbucks and it would say Bradley.
And you guys didn't even think about that, huh?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
The photo.
We were blinded by our glory of love in the moment because we would leave. I lived in the West Village and could walk to work. So he was over at my place most of the time. And we would stop at the Starbucks and walk to work. And I'm like, I'm going to go in first.
And then also the like the house or the salon, what would you call her? The housekeeper of the salon.
Oh, yeah.
Salon keeper. She knows everything. She is this lovely Dominican woman and we love her to death. Her and her sister work in our salon still. But she knows everything.
Yeah.
You know, like
all the bodies are buried. She knows.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And so
she'd be like that nosy neighbor peering through everyone's window.
She would come over and just be like, oh, that lunch looks really good. Where'd you get that? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Bradley got it for me. And she'd be like, oh, Bradley got it for you? And I'm like, yeah, doesn't he buy all his assistants lunch? And she's like, no. So there were definitely some giveaways.
There were signs.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. And again, as you're telling your story, I'm thinking of Mike and I. We met at the gym, but I did not date people from the gym. And so we had to not date in the gym. So I'd say, well, I'm not going to walk in there with you. You go in. I was just over at his place or he was at my place. Same type of thing, right? And then they figure it out. Like, wait, are you guys together? Are you dating Mike? I'm like, oh, Lord. Okay, yes.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right, guys. So circling back, what do each of you feel sets your personal styling techniques apart from each other while you're in the salon? So now we're back to both of you are hairdressers working in the same salon. So what do you think separates your personal styles apart from each other?
I mean, it's one of those things where
I thrive on chaos behind the chair.
He's a Scorpio. I'm a Taurus. I'm much more organized, and he's a little bit more like.
Yes.
So you're a little messy. You like the mess of it all, the chaos.
I like the chaos of it all.
He works well under pressure.
As long as like, you know, I mean, you could probably walk in and be like, oh, I have an appointment with you. And I'd be like, oh, okay, sit. And then next thing I would know, I'd have like 3 of you all together. And I'm like, oh, wait. Not an appointment, but okay, whatever. You know what? We'll figure it out. We'll make it work. Whereas he's like more.
Yeah, if I saw, I can see the door at any time who walks in, and there's been times I see a client of mine walk in, and I'm like, I know they don't have an appointment. What are they doing here? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I freeze. I'm like, why are they here? Why are they here? What's going on? And sometimes it does happen every once in a while, but like I'm like, okay, I have to pivot because my thing is like, you know, I feel like when people book appointments. I need to respect their time just as much as they need to respect my time. So it gives me anxiety. No, I'm saying your clients are used to you. But my clients that, you know, you draw the kind of clients that you tend to be yourself, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
You know, I have clients that have literally been coming to me for 22 years, since my first day of work in New York City. And, you know, a couple of them had said to me, like, you know, you have never taken me late. You have never canceled on me. You've always been on time. And I'm like, well, yeah, because this is the time you reserve for me. So I respect that. Like,
that's how I am as a stylist. And once you become known for it, it becomes a part of your standard practice, you know? Yeah. So how do each of you, how do you each bring your own flair and creativity to the work you do, like especially when you're working with high profile clients. So Lewis, you trained under Bradley, correct? You were his assistant.
Yes.
So a lot of times when we train somebody, their style, because we're more of a mentor, they kind of mimic your style, right? And then you have to make it your own.
Yeah.
So how have you guys been able to do that? Or do you know what I'm saying? Because I know you also share clients, which
Yeah.
means you've got to hold the same standards, but yet you still are two individuals. So you also have to have your own personal touch.
So I think I had started at where I met him and our boss, but there was a almost like a 8-year period that because when she opened up her own salon, Vida of West, I was not a part of that team. So she kind of pushed me out on my own and kind of gave me a little bit of tough love where I had to grow into my own person and my own individual for about 8 years. And that's how I developed my own, ability and how I became such experience in my own way and grew my clientele and started to kind of become this extension specialist, if you will, now because I grew into my own and found what I loved to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when him and I collaborate on clients, I think one, they love the dynamic between us, where I am a little more chaotic and he's calm, maybe a little more witty on one side, a little more serious on the other side. So I think the dynamic of us working together works really well. We've definitely had to divide and conquer clients now where it's like, okay, I don't really like getting dirty, so I don't really want to necessarily like do all of the color, but I mean, I will help achieve it. But like, my formulas are chaos. It's like, I'm like, okay, I just want to add some of this. I like this color. And it always works out. But whereas he's more methodical in that way, where he'll be like, okay, we need 10 grams of this. And I'm like, just put a little out of that.
Well, I think that's part of like where we have different types of, different brain types and different ways of thinking. Like I have like that analytical, my chemistry and biological background with pharmacy. It's all science. Like I understand science in a way where I'm like, I don't want, there's not to meant to insult you, like the pour and pray method. A lot of stylists pour and pray. Like I'm just going to throw this.
Pour and pray. Coin that.
I can break it down analytically and know scientifically what I need to add to get from point A to point B. And I know when I put it on, it's going to be exactly what I want. There's no surprises. Not to say that that's not bad, because the owner of our salon, she's like that. And she does great work, but she also never remembers her formulas.
Oh, yeah. You gotta remember.
Don't you?
I love you, Vicky. Write them down, Vicky.
It works. It works for us, So we used to kind of like in the beginning, we would step on each other's toes a bit because, like he said, there is an age. I think that's the difference too. There is an age gap between us where, the old school versus new school methods. Sometimes, I may be a little more nervous to try an old school method and he vice versa, of a new method. So we've really learned to kind of divide, but also hear each other where it's like, okay, you do the color, I'll do the cutting and styling because that's more my forte. You're more the science. And then if we're doing extensions, then we do it together so that we get them done quicker. But so
you guys have created, you have a flow now. You've created a way to separate yourselves while still working together. And that you answered the question exactly the way I wrote it to be answered, because you have a lot of stylist teams, whether it's husband and wife, whether it's two besties or, married couple or boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever you call it. And it's hard to differentiate yourself from each other. You almost, you become, even me, having worked with the same colorist for 24 years, we were known as one, but we're two separate entities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've created a nice balance, it looks like, which is nice.
I think that even if we weren't married and we were just two people collaborating together, it becomes still a relationship, right? And it's all about communicating and understanding what each other is comfortable with, what they feel like their strengths are, and then executing it in a way where you're working together to get one final end beautiful product. And
yeah.
It's like sometimes you have to put the egos aside. It's not a competition. You're working together. You're meant to inspire each other. You're not meant to compete against each other. And like that's when you have to kind of
a little bit of a friendly competition, though. I'm not gonna
and I'll let him think that. But in my mind,
well, that just drives your creativity. Yeah. That friendly competition. It's a healthy competition. And I think to your point, Bradley, it's important for all of us stylists to remember that the star is actually the client, not us. But our egos sometimes make it all about us, and the client can't even tell you, before long, your client's afraid to even ask you a question.
No,
I don't. That stylist before, like, okay, I want to cut bangs. Is that okay? It's like, you shouldn't be asking me if it's okay. You should, or you shouldn't be afraid to, I should say.
My approach to all stylists, especially with my assistants when we're helping train them, I was like, you need to speak to them and get as much information. You are secondary. Clients. Yes, you're speaking to the clients.
Yes.
And you're only giving them information if they ask you for it. Don't throw yourself at them because you're focusing on them. Like I have clients that want certain colors or cuts that I don't think is amazing, but if this is what they want and this is how they want to live their life, I'm going to give it to them.
All we can do is share with them the pros and the cons.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's your head. You have to walk around with it, and you're paying me to do it. So it's your money as well. So let's talk, you guys, a little bit about that. Let's parlay back to you just a tad. Your relationship and your work-life balance, like your relationship started in the salon. What's it like sharing the same industry and even the same salon space while you manage these individual, I guess, hairdressing careers? Meaning you've got to deal with, because you're married, other nuances. You have to deal with the way someone else may interact with your partner. You kind of have to deal with other salon politics too, don't you?
In a way. I mean, we're lucky. We have two different locations.
Oh, you don't work in the same location.
So okay. We will occasionally collaborate together, but for the most part, I am over at our 14th Street and he's over at Charles. Yeah. There are some days that I need to go and fill in at Charles Street. So yeah, because I think that was the whole thing too, as to why I wasn't brought on right away. Besides me needing to grow, it was like, is this going to be healthy for us long term? Because we weren't married when we first opened up the salon. And so I think there was a lot of wonder if we were going to be okay and how we would make it through that. So now that it's been 9 years, it
worked out just fine.
Yeah, exactly.
9 years.
So
but yeah, it was just smart in the term in our owner, Vicky. She has always loved both of us and always wanted to work as a team with us since day one. She also wanted to protect our relationship, and she knew, because she worked with her family. So she knows, like, when you're working together with people that are your close relationship with, problems can come up. So she made sure that he went off on his own, built his own career. He wasn't under anybody's shadow. Not that, I was just established, right? And he was starting out. So she wanted him to go grow on his own. We get to the point where we have a great, healthy relationship that can't be affected by this, and then we all come together. And that's what's happening now.
You have a great person to oversee that, and that foresight that she had shows that she really cares about you guys, which is why I'm sure you're still there.
Yeah,
exactly. You're hard pressed to find a career now in one place over 10 years. It just kind of doesn't exist anymore.
And I've been working with her for going on 19 years now. So it's amazing. She's like, we're like brother and sister. Like, there's a long history there.
Amazing.
It is
Well,
kind
kudos to her because salon ownership is not easy. And the fact that she's even had a salon for someone to work in for 19 years is a credit to herself as a businesswoman and as a stylist and as a mentor. So, Lewis, what's been your most memorable transformation on a client, and how did it impact you as a stylist? Like, can you think of where you're like, "Ooh, okay, I'm
yeah.
feeling myself. I did that."
So to be honest with you, it wasn't that I was like, oh wow, like I'm feeling myself. This looks amazing. Believe it or not, it was a young girl who was, I always share this story because this was my most proud moment, I will say, as a stylist. She was diagnosed with leukemia, I believe. No, sorry, not leukemia. Lyme's disease, totally different things. And when she came to me, she was looking for extensions. She was with her mom, and her hair was very fine, and she had some lengths like 2 inches, some 6, and vice versa. And it was just, she was so distraught and like almost just defeated, like with the texture of her hair and the fineness. And I remember, I believe I gave her 2 sets of extensions, great lengths extensions, 2 or 3. After the 3rd set or 2nd set, she walked out with a complete lob, full, no extensions. And I just remember her crying and of happiness. And to me, watching someone have that reaction and that smile on their face was the most memorable experience that I've ever.
And that's why we do what we do, is that they can walk in completely life changed, you know, once they walk out, which is so cool that we have that ability to change someone's life that way. So Bradley, do you have a favorite moment from your career that really stands out, or a client transformation you're particularly proud of?
I mean, gosh, there's so many moments. I just like,
so many. Oh my God, I've had so many good.
No, it's not even that. It's just, I think.
Oh my God, Lewis, you're hilarious.
Wow.
I think that it's just more of a feeling for me, because I think a lot of creatives, a lot of artists are plagued with like that self-doubt and just, those feelings of like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know if I'm good enough. Like, I see all these assistants watching me and I'm supposed to mentor, and like,
just pick a moment.
It wasn't until, honestly, like there was a publication one time that put a photo of a client of mine in there and said makeover of the year. And I just remember looking at this and I'm like, and this was like it was like People Us Weekly. It was like something like this. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, I used to read these magazines. And like, my name is in this magazine, saying my name in this salon. And it's like, not that I need like validation or like but it was just like one of those aha moments where you just sit back and you're like, wow.
Was it the black bob we did on?
No.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't.
Yeah, not every stylist gets that opportunity.
And it was
so
just like,
it's okay to be proud and
it was just pure
celebrate
gratitude and appreciation and like acknowledgement on my part. It's like, wow, you have really not given yourself enough credit for everything you've done in this industry, because I'm just going through the motions and I just like hyper focus. And sometimes I forget to look at the beautiful things around me, as opposed to just, tunnel vision on what I got to do next. And it was just like, I'll just always remember that moment where I was just like,
no, that's a pretty impressive, incredible moment to share, because again, it's a testament to just listening to how you came into the industry, even just kind of winging it really, and then reaching that level, which is success. If you can make it into a publication, that definitely is a milestone for success.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I used to collect everything because every time something I had to have it, and it's like I actually have like a big pile now, and I'm like, wow, this is
Look at that.
wild how much stuff that I can like. And it's like in our storage unit, because like I used to have in our apartment, he'd get mad at me for hoarding. I'm like, okay, we gotta find a spot to put this stuff. But I was like, I'm not throwing it out.
That's awesome. I love that story. What's the secret, you guys, behind, what's the secret to building long-term relationships with high-profile clients? I know you tapped on it a little, you touched on it a little earlier, especially when privacy and discretion are key. Like, what's the secret?
Well, you just said it.
That's exactly it.
Privacy and discretion. Like we do a lot of work for film and television, getting actors ready for roles. And
now, are you signing NDAs? Because that's what I've run into lately. I can't even really say who I've done.
Nobody has NDA. Well, that's one of the things. Like nobody has actually had to have us sign NDAs for the things that we've done, but out of respect for what we're doing, knowing that these projects are coming to fruition. Most of my clients don't even know I do this kind of stuff. You won't find any of the photos on my Instagram because it's a level of respect for both the set stylists that work in the production and like and the celebrities that obviously people can take advantage of. People get starstruck and they just want to shout it to the ceilings. But then they're like, okay, well, I'm not even a real person anymore. You're just using me for a boost. And it's just things like that. If you just take this, appreciate the moment that you're in with these people and that you're playing a large part in helping them become a character or whatever the case may be.
I think it also depends on your relationship with them. Because,
well, yeah, like, you have to like not only make them good for a role, but like they also have to walk around in their regular life while they're filming these things, and they may feel a little crazy. So if you put in that extra effort and talk to them, be like, how do you feel? I know what production is saying. I know what the set is saying. I know what the stylist is saying. How do you feel?
Yeah. No, I feel that.
Because people
I feel that.
Don't often.
It's true. They're objectified often because they're just that person on the screen that I didn't think I would ever see in person. And so people see someone in person and all of a sudden they lose their minds. It's insane. And if you are the celebrity and every individual that you interact with, I always feel sorry for them in a way that you don't know why. Like it's hard to determine who's genuine. Like, are you just my friend because I'm me and I'm the celebrity, or do you actually see me? That's what I've heard from celebrities.
I think once you've kind of been around it enough and worked behind the scenes enough, you feel the sadness that can come along with it. And if you empathize with it and accept it, then I don't understand how someone couldn't. Like, there's often times that I'm just like, gosh, this must be so lonely.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a sea of people and alone. And it would be so weird to not be able to go to Target.
Right.
By yourself. I'm like, no, I'm good behind the scenes.
And I think they're craving, just like anybody else, a real connection with someone. If you're authentic self and just come from the heart and approach it like that, then that's when.
Well, that's why they become besties with their hairdressers. Right. Let's look at one of your celebrities.
Yeah. That's my Julia.
Julia. What's her last name, Louis? Hart. Julia Hart.
Yes.
And what does Julia Hart do?
She is a public figure now.
She. Say she or he?
She.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. She was the creative director of La Perla. She was also on that Netflix show, My Unorthodox Life. She really has a very interesting story. She has a book all about it as well.
What's the name of her book?
Oh God, Kim, why are you putting me on the spot? Hold on.
Okay. You don't have to remember.
I have it. It's in my room. Yeah. And so she's gonna kill me. I can't believe I don't have it. But anyways, you have
a lot of clients. We don't expect you to remember every detail.
I met her over COVID, actually. And it was this thing, and I was like, oh, I don't know. One of her PR people reached out to me to do her extensions. And I was like, I don't know, like, if I can do that. Like, it's COVID. This was before the show, before everything. So I just ended up was like, you know what, let me just do it. And I met her. She's so sweet. She's got a huge heart, just like her last name says. And it just flourished into this awesome relationship of, I was there through a lot. She's gone through a pretty hard time. If anybody Googles, was in the news. It was a big thing. And so I was there for all of it. And we just grew our relationship. She currently does not have extensions in because I've nursed her hair back to health. So she's rocking a really cute pixie haircut that I absolutely love and adore. So yeah.
Aw, I love that. That's amazing. And then since you guys do this little nugget together, we'll just show her. Gosh, look at Snooki.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about your relationship with her and how you met.
So I started working with Nicole through her. I actually had a client who was one of my extension clients, and she was a publicist. And right after Nicole finished filming in Italy, the season of Italy of Jersey Shore, is when she had signed her on. And she's like, listen, would you be willing to bring her in and kind of give her a makeover? And I was like, okay, sure. Meanwhile, I was terrified because I'm such a naturalist, and I knew I was a fan of the show. And I was like, she's a little like, she likes wild styles, and it's really not my aesthetic. But Brad, this is when you've got to get out of your comfort zone and just put your head into it and just go for it. And she came in, and she had, the poof that she always liked, black hair, and she wanted Barbie blonde extensions all underneath. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like what? Well, that's obviously
like, how?
Two-toned hair was like a big thing. I mean, this was like 15, 16 years ago. And then, we just became fast friends. And it's like I said, you just build a relationship. And she was just started dating her now husband, Gianni. It was way before they ever had kids, way before they were married. It was like this blossoming new relationship. And then just over the years, she's one of these people that she comes up with an idea of her head of what she wants. And if I could show you the picture that she sent me, that was the inspiration behind this look. She always likes to say she wanted chunky and trashy, and we gave her classy.
Oh my gosh. And I can totally see that too.
We take her photos she sends to us, and immediately we're like, oh God, here we go. Because it's never like, oh, from this photo, like I want to be a redhead. No, it's from this photo, I want to go back to black. And then from back to black, I want to become a redhead or a blonde. And so we're always like, oh.
We never know what's
that girl.
But this was a great one, honestly.
No, that's beautiful. On her. Beautiful. Like it's a perfect splash of classy for who we know her to be.
We wanted it to be somewhat 90s inspired, but still modernized in a way where it didn't look like, that, Christina Aguilera stripped, black and white kind of thing from back in the day. But
this was the second session that we actually did on her. And this was like the one that we were like, oh my God, yes, this one's perfect.
Oh, well, you did an amazing job. I'm sure she's super happy.
She's a perfect case of she's become a very good friend of ours. She became an ordained minister and actually performed our wedding ceremony.
Yes, this is
really?
True. This is true. We were like, who's going to marry us? We're like, wait.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people can say Snooki married them? I mean, come on. That's amazing.
Well, but she's also a perfect example of apparently from the story she told me, the previous hairstylist that she had kind of capitalized on her. She thought they were going out to have fun to a bar to hang out. And then all of a sudden there's posters of her splashed all over the bar that she didn't know was happening.
Shut up.
Yeah. So there's just things where it's like you got to remember people get taken advantage of, and you have to be real with people. I was just myself. Lewis was just himself. She was one of the first ones that knew we were dating too, by the way. And just
and
you just have to keep
it quiet.
No,
that's why she's been your client for as long as she has. You actually see her as a person. That's the thing that I, having real estate as a side hustle at times, that's what I don't like about real estate, is that you have to look at every single person as a lead. I don't want to look at people as leads, and that's how I feel people who do some celebrities. It's like, ooh, okay, once I get you, then it becomes about me. And it's like, how many of you can you tell your friends, so I can have all celebrities, and then there's a picture of me with this person, there's a picture of me with this person, and it really starts to become more superficial, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about
the
challenge. Go ahead.
book is called Brazen. Julia Hart's book is
Brazen.
Brazen. And it's her whole story of how she escaped the Orthodox community. It hit me. I'm like trying to picture.
You're like, you just thought of the book.
Yes, I'm picturing it on my nightstand, and I'm like, oh.
You're like, here it is. That's how it always is. On your drive home, you're like, gosh, I should have said this. Yeah. So let's talk about challenges and growth. Lewis, let's start with you. What's one challenge you faced as a stylist, and how did you overcome that?
Oof. Well, there's definitely been many through, my career. I would say the biggest challenge that I think I've felt was, yes, I've made hiccups behind the chair on colors and cuts and things like that, but who doesn't, right, out of school? I think my biggest challenge for me was figuring out what role I wanted to take as a stylist. And so with that, I mean, I kind of came into this era as a Gen Z of everything was on social media, and it was kind of the start of that, where, hairstylists were becoming more and more recognized through social media and their work, and influencers and things like that. And I think for me, that was big, and that's what I wanted to be at that time. And I didn't really realize that how much it was actually affecting me mentally, physically, my work behind the chair, because it was always I have to get this shot for the gram or for social media, instead of I have to perfect this because I love doing what I do. And it actually honestly wasn't up until recently that I let go of all my contracts and obligations and started focusing on the job. I'm back behind the chair at our salon, where I've wanted to be for 12 years, 13 years, and this was my happy home. And so I realized quickly that I didn't need all this extra validation. So I guess being validated was my problem. I wanted to be validated as a social media influencer, stylist, whatever. And I overcame it because now I'm at a place where I'm so happy and I'm comfortable and I love what I do. So I could let go of that and just work from the heart.
That just almost got emotional, because it's such a struggle right now, especially even for any stylist, really, because where do we, it's almost, if you don't have a social media presence, is that you're invisible. Almost like you don't exist. Because even if you meet someone organically, the first thing they do, what's your Instagram?
Yeah.
It's oh, okay. Well, I'm actually standing in front of you, but here you go. Yeah. But I get it. It's now become our portfolio to some degree.
So present on it. It's just not having the contracts and the obligations of having to do it and just doing it because you want to do it. It's definitely been mentally healthy.
No, and I think that's important. Let me do that again, because I just knocked my bangs and my microphone. I think that's important for new stylists to know that as they are trying to build their brand, because they grew up with a computer in their face, or a device in their face. So they are very comfortable in that space, and it comes more natural, I think, to a younger person or a younger stylist than it does to those of us that have been in it for a while. And
For
so I think that feeling of I have to do this, because when I talk to young stylists, all of them, I can say every single one that I've spoken to, 100% built their clientele using social media.
Yeah, and that's not to
Yeah.
say that that's not a good way of doing it, especially nowadays. I just think that it should be because you want to, not because you have to, or
Right. And I think that's what I'm saying, Lewis. I don't think that I think it's a way, but I
yeah,
think the issue is all of the heartache and not feeling validated, not feeling seen and heard that it causes. I
yeah,
think that's the problem because yeah, I can do this if I want or not, but what if I want to do it? It's really, really hard. And
yes.
then you start to feel like, gosh,
You
what's
have to
wrong with me?
for
Yeah.
sure. It's definitely not easy. It's tasking. I mean, I'm sure you know. I mean, even putting these podcasts together. I
Oh,
mean,
I know.
I'm looking at a screen right now that's so uniquely curated and gorgeous, but it took work, and
Mhm.
so you have to
And
really,
right now I'm trying to grow an audience. So yeah, you work really hard and
yeah,
you don't have as much engagement because you're new. People are still trying to figure out who you are but you got to keep going.
exactly.
Yeah,
You
And
have to really be confident in yourself and manage the mentality aspect of social media when you're approaching it so it doesn't defeat you.
yeah,
yes, great advice.
You got to know how to filter through the BS.
Yes, that part. And
Yeah.
Bradley, let me get your thoughts as well. What's been the toughest part of your journey and what lessons have you learned from it?
Well, I mean, I can kind of mirror his somewhat, but in a different way because I came from a generation that when a hairstylist was going for an interview, you brought a portfolio with you and a resume. Now,
a what?
yeah, now,
You mean
you're-
paper? They
oh,
still
yeah,
make that?
but that was a real thing. But now your Instagram is your portfolio.
Yeah,
And, I remember before there was internet. Like, I came from this generation. So me embracing technology as someone who is a little bit older has been like the biggest thing. And I'm not the best at it still, I'll admit it. There's been times I'm like, can you do something with this photo for me? Or like, what do you think about this? Or can you write something for this? Because like my brain doesn't like work in that same way. But we
Well, let
get
me tell you
lucky
what
with
everybody else is doing, Bradley. They're using Chat GPT.
Chat GPT. That's
oh
the
my
big
Yeah,
god, I
they'll write
just
it for
saw
you.
that.
Yeah.
I've like recently, well, you showed me, and then I was like, wait, what?
No, it's a whole. I mean, I love Chat GPT for certain things. You can ask it for a business plan. It'll
Oh
go
yeah, you can tell it can plan vacations for you and everything.
1000%. So yeah. So you were saying,
Yeah, so mine really like the biggest challenge was just really kind of accepting the fact that this is now a part of the career and instead of resisting the changes as the industry is changing, instead of fighting it, embracing it in a way that is also still mentally healthy for me to deal with. And it is a lot. I think like if I were to go back and scroll all the way down from like the beginning of my Instagram to now, you almost see like the psychological changes going on in my life as I'm like maneuvering up. We're all guilty. Like I used to filter the heck out of things because I'm like, oh my God, it has to look perfect. But now I have this belief that I'm like, if I can't get the picture to look as, realistic expectations for people that are looking at this photo, I'm not going to post it because I'm not going to post a photo that doesn't exist in real life because people get this idea that they're going to come in. I'm like, your hair doesn't look like that. It's like, I call it the Kardashian effect, where people are filtering and changing things so much that they think that it's real. And I'm like, well, they come in, they bring these photos. I love the Kardashians, don't worry.
but then they go and they try to mimic a air-touch photograph.
Fake hair or like something that's been so far altered that I'm like, your hair will never do this because their hair doesn't even do this.
Well, I talked to another stylist over in New Jersey. She goes by at thy_stylist. She's lovely. And she was saying someone brought in something from TikTok. There's a colorist and he's using like a little you know, like those little combs that you use like for your eyebrows, that
Oh yeah.
tiny, the tiny, and he's dipping it in bleach and just painting it on, and and gets a beautiful end result. So her client brings this in. Ooh, this is so pretty. Can we try this on me? She goes, if I did that, your whole hairline would be orange.
Yeah.
Like, you have to understand that's more for show, but that's not how he achieved that result. And we
Right.
talk about that a lot on this show, about the difference between a good hairstylist and a really good content creator. And they're not necessarily synonymous,
No.
because you can have a really good content creator, not the best stylist, great stylist, just not the best content creator, you know? So there's that.
Yeah, my advice to people that are trying to get into starting it with social media is like really encourage your clients to take selfies, and because they know their light, they know their poses, they know that where they look their best and where they feel their best. Have them post them the stories, repost those stories. It engages the client, it gets them involved in your page, it's showing off your work in a realistic, in the world reality, as opposed to like, oh, let me just put a light here, put a light there, and filter this. Like, it's just more realistic expectations, because people nowadays are starting to realize the bluff.
Oh, the gig is the jig is up.
Yeah.
They know. They know. They can see
Yeah.
right on through that.
It's
How do you both, with this world of education on social media and influence now from hairstylists, how do you both continue to grow as stylists, and what inspires you to keep pushing your craft forward? Like, who inspires you? What are you doing to stay fresh?
I think I let those that I work around inspire me. I am constantly watching. I mean, I joke now with him. I'm like, technically now I'm your boss because I'm the creative director of the salons. But even though I have that title, I'm constantly still watching everyone, being inspired by my team. Our boss is very inspiring. Everyone we surround ourselves with, I feel like either they're inspiring or always want to learn, which then in return allows me to kind of educate myself more in order to educate them. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of keep myself inspired.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. And before I forget and lose my thought, because I wanted to say this when we were talking about social media, editing, altering pictures, altering our bodies, the Kardashians, all those things. You guys, I honestly thought these are both beautiful boys, but I thought Lewis had a nose job and he doesn't. I just want to say that because I know you think he does too, don't you?
Oh
don't
my
you,
God.
audience? You do.
That I do not. So that is what I will listen. I am the first one to be like, you need a good doctor, girl. I will give you all the recommendations. I am pretty much all natural above the net. No, that's a lie. Okay, I have Botox and fillers, no nose job. But
I know, but God bless you for giving you that nose. I mean, I want to see your parents because they must have both of you beautiful.
Thank you.
But I have to say that, and it's all in fun.
Thank you. Yes, everyone is always like,
Everyone's always
is
like,
your nose real? Don't touch it.
I'm gonna rub his makeup.
My contour.
So funny. So yeah. So you, Bradley, same thing. Are you inspired by just like your beautiful boss / husband?
Yeah, I mean, like
your work.
This is when I encourage people to like really work in environments where they're around people.
She asked if you were inspired by me.
Because I am getting to that. Because I get to walk into a great space full of different types of people, and I get to live with this one I've seen his career grow from like, he was still in beauty school technically when I interviewed him to where he is now. Like, I've witnessed every stage of it. No, you were still in there. You weren't done yet. You still had to do hours. So. Yeah. And it's just, to see, he told me stories about how he didn't know how to cut extensions in beauty school and butchered this woman's hair. And now he's like this Great Lengths master. And I like to say that I contribute to part of that because I've been doing Great Links also for about 18 years, and I introduced them to him.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's all like, it really is just paying attention to everyone around you. And, you know, our assistants, you know, God bless Vicky, our owner. She's great at what she does, but she'd be the first one to say she's good at what she does, but she's not great at teaching people how to do it because she can't.
I'm glad she recognizes that.
She can't word things the right way, but I can because I know how she works. So all the assistants, they'll see her do something and come over to me, Bradley, can you explain why she used this? Or why she did this. I'm like, yes, she did it she angled it up over direct so that she put a layer in, but it didn't take the length from the bottom because I can see it happening, but she can't formulate the words well. So it's really good that I'm constantly having people asking me because it makes me aware that my opinion matters to people too. And I don't ever want to give anybody the wrong information either. So it's helps me stay on top of things. Because if I'm ever thinking about something, I'm like, what is that? I'm the first one to be like, I'm researching it. I may have been in this industry for, 3 decades, but like things are changing all the time. I don't know everything. The minute you think you know everything is the minute your career is going to be done.
Ain't it?
Like,
yeah. And I can relate to that because even doing this show and talking to all of the stylists that I've been privy to talk to, like Ashley Norman came on and she talked circles around me when it came to hair or color. And I thought, oh, damn. I'm out of the game, kind of, and I'm new to color. But even when I had Sana Brado on, who is a platform artist for cutting, and she has her own brand, even she's been in it for 40 years, and she is surpassed young stylists as an influencer, which I am impressed by. Mm-hmm. Someone of our generation who's actually succeeding in that influencer space and killing it, by the way. But she says, yeah, Kim, you got to get back out there. I'm like, yeah, I know. Cause it reminds me, I haven't been to a show lately, have I? I mean, like in a long time. So you kind of can get complacent if you're not, pulling inspiration from somebody. And me working solo in a studio since 2020, I realized, I gotta start getting back out there.
Because it does make a difference. Even a lot of studios. A friend of mine owns a studio salon back in like Granite City, Illinois area near St. Louis. She's more of an open studio where like the doors are open and everyone like communicates, talk to each other. And it's like this camaraderie that she encourages, so they all can kind of like help each other out a bit.
We have that too. But it's still, when I had my partner in studio with me, it was more intimate and you felt like it was a safe place to ask questions. You know what I mean? And really collab that way. But yeah, to your point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about future aspirations. Where do each of you see your careers going in the next few years? Like any big goals or projects you're excited about?
No,
not a one. We're staying right here. We're good with Vicky. We've been here.
I mean, I just always have it in my mind where I just try to do as much as I can and the best that I can, both financially and mentally. We both have gotten to the point where we work 4 days a week. Because you understand, as much as we love doing what we do, you have to have a life outside of work too. I built my career working 6-7 days a week for years and years and years. And I finally like put up the boundaries and like realized that I needed it to like work in a way that was healthy. Mm-hmm. So I try not to say this is what I'm going to do in 5 years from now, because I feel like that kind of puts a level of pressure for me personally.
I'm going to be on a yacht sipping rosé all day.
I know you are, Louis.
That's.
I know you are. I can totally see you doing that. Yeah. So, Louis, what's one thing about Bradley's work that you admire the most? Nothing. Just kidding. He's like,
I honestly, I think it's his structure, like the way that he can look at a situation and kind of pick it apart, like there have been many times where I've been like, okay, like what is happening underneath this, color and blah, 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 blah. And he will know exactly what to say from the scientific point of view. And I'm just like, I need to know what's going to get me there faster. Like, you know what I mean? So I admire the mind that he has when solving situations or just doing a client day to day.
That's respectful. Bradley, what's one thing about Lewis's approach to hairstyling that inspires you?
All the opposite of what I just said.
You know what? I admire his unabashed bravery, where he's just like, whatever, let's go. I got it. Okay. Yeah. Whereas I'd be like, if something weird, like there's been some weird things on his book lately, like I'm hearing him telling me these stories, I would be like, you need to get this client on the phone. I need to have a FaceTime with them. I need to talk to them. I need to organize this before they get here. He's like, I'll figure it out when they get here. It's all good. Like, it's just like that unabashed kind of like, I'm just going to go with the flow. It's going to work out, like whatever. Whereas I would be like anxiety city.
Oh yeah. You guys are polar opposites, yeah. But that's what probably makes it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's something I admire about people like Lewis because I'm one more like Bradley, you know, and Mike is always, it's going to be fine. It'll be fine. How do you know it's going to be fine? It's not fine.
We really do.
Fine until it's fine.
We're just going to say it and hope for the best. It'll be fine.
If you could each give one piece of advice to new stylists entering the industry, what would it be?
Oh, so I would tell people, watch, listen, put your ego aside, don't take it personally, and just try to live your best day each day.
Ooh, that's a good one. My advice would be all of that, plus don't take yourself too seriously, and just know that if you're fresh, just starting, just try to do a little better each day, and then eventually that little bit better each day becomes a lot better over time. So
yeah, it's just really being kind to yourself. We're all learning. We're all in this together. It's a creative field. Everyone's going to have a different opinion, and it's our job to like decide.
Oh, and don't believe everything you see on TikTok. Yeah, it's a lie.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Seriously. It's a lie, y'all. Definitely a liar. Okay, so we have reached the conclusion of this interview, and you guys were amazing. I know I'm going to be casting my net back into your DMs at some point later on down the road. I would love to have you back on where we could talk about, you know, more hot topics in the industry now that we've gotten to know both of you so intimately and personally. Yeah. I love it. Thanks for sharing all of your wisdom, just everything that you've experienced in your careers, because I know you're going to help so many people because it's so relatable. Any new hairdresser watching is going to see you in themselves in some way. So they're going to grow and be better for it. So I
love that.
My favorite part, because I am the game girl, queen of games. I need a queen hat when I do this part. In fact, I'm going to make me a queen hat for game queen.
Get your crown.
Yes. So this is the 60-second blowout. I am going to set a minute timer. Okay. And
after individually or together?
No, like you're going to see.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You're going to see. See, this is the surprise.
This is so fun. I want to do another one where we just do this.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay. And you know what? I'm putting these things right back on my face, as big as they are.
It's okay. I have mine right here in case I needed them.
Okay. There you go. I mean, hey, this is where we are in life, child. I cannot see, and I'm not going to pretend like I can. All right. So here we go.
Okay.
Who's the better cook?
Him.
Me.
Favorite city besides NYC?
Miami.
Clippers or scissors?
Scissors.
Bold or natural hair color?
Natural.
Who's more likely to stay up late?
Me.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Coffee or cocktails?
Cocktail.
Who takes longer to get ready?
Me.
Dream vacation destination?
Grease.
Ooh, yeah.
Who's more likely to start dancing during a workday?
Me.
Favorite hair trend right now?
Golden blonde as opposed to
Rich
ashy blonde.
brunette.
Ooh,
Like that everyone's embracing the warmth.
who's more organized?
Him.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Go-to song while working?
Ooh.
Oh.
I'm good with BB Rexa and David Guetta.
Oh.
Hey, you guys actually
Did we get all the
get
made
questions?
it. Yes.
I win.
So here's where
You guys
I get to
too.
see how humble you are. Make your silliest selfie face for the world.
Silliest selfie face?
Silliest.
I have too much Botox in my face.
Oh
I
no. I do.
Ooh,
I do
I
like.
that.
I do this to the assistants all the time. I come up. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I love to cross my eyes at them.
Well, you guys, that shows that you practice humility, which is so important in our world. And again, I want to thank you so much for coming on my show. I am so blessed that I met both of you on such a peaceful, amazing vacation like Maui is.
Yes.
And I wish you the best day, the best week, and much more success in your careers.
Thank you for having us.
We had so
Yes,
much.
of course. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.